Now, it's been a year now since the release of Netflix series My Unorthodox Life, which follows the real Haart family as they leave the Ultra-Orthodox Jewish community. So what's changed for the Haarts, though, since their exposure last year? And when will season 2 come out? Joining me with answers is Miriam Haart. Miriam, it is a pleasure to have you here in studio. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
It's great to have you, and welcome to Israel, of course. This is not your first time to Israel.
No, but this is my longest time. So I'm really happy to be spending a lot of time in this country.
All right, well, tell me first about, what it's been like going, tell me about your experience really going from like this general anonymity in a sense to, this stardom, and especially given the context for which you're getting this attention.
Yeah, I mean, like, this decision of doing this TV show with my family has been something that was my decision.
Really?
I've had a lot of time to think about, do I want to be a public figure or do I want to stay private with my life, with my, relationships, with what I do? And after thinking about it for a very long time, I decided that I wanted to give up my privacy in exchange for so many positive things that come with being a public figure that I am now. Yeah.
So, and then how does that relate to maybe your trip to Israel? I understand you just graduated from Stanford.
Yes.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, how does that translate? How are you leveraging your stardom, your new platform?
Yeah, so definitely being in Israel is a whole nother experience for me. I would say because the show was like about a Jewish family, being in Israel, a lot more people do recognize me. And it's really fun. I love meeting people. I love saying hello. And since I just graduated Stanford, I majored from the School of Engineering. And so I've been meeting a lot of founders here. So really my schedule has been super packed. The city of Tel Aviv took me out on a full day trip, meeting different companies, meeting different female founders, just learning about what the tech scene's like here, and it's really incredible.
Are you going to move to Israel, or are you just like creating some partnerships?
Creating some partnerships. I want to support the state. I want to support the people here. And so maybe spend more time in Tel Aviv.
Right.
We'll see. Yeah.
So, okay, like, I don't know, what kind of reactions are you also getting in the wake of everything that's happened in the last year?
In general, I mean, like, the reactions have been really, really positive. On my Instagram, when the show came out, I just started getting so many messages from people saying, thank you for sharing the story. I've been getting messages not from fundamentalist Jewish families, but fundamentalist Mormon families, fundamentalist Christian families, all over the world saying, I've had these experiences and thank you for giving us a voice. And so really, it feels so good to see people say, I came out to my family because of you. I want to go to university because of you. Just these really positive impacts that this show has made on so many women and so many queer people, it just really brings me so much joy.
Have you received criticism, and how have you maybe dealt with that?
Of course. I mean, like, in anything that you do, there will be criticism, but I don't take it personally. I think when you speak up about something that is very powerful and affects a lot of people, it hurts some people, it makes some people offended, but that's just part of life. You can never really stand up for something that you believe in without hurting somebody's feelings. And I think that our mission in the show was to empower women and to show that any woman can be financially independent, they can do what they set their mind to, and I think that we're succeeding in that.
So what were maybe some of the biggest changes for you, or for you and your family, coming from Orthodoxy to secularism, and for you especially, I mean, coming out as bisexual, etc.? Yeah.
I would say that although there are so many changes in terms of what I wore, obviously, in terms of what I ate, in terms of when I went out, like going out on a Saturday, how I spent my time, those were all big changes.
Did you feel like guilt at first doing those things, or?
So I do remember the first time I wore pants, and it felt, I was at an H&M, I put on a pair of jeans, they're skinny jeans, I was, I think, 16 years old, and it felt weird. It felt weird seeing my legs in skinny jeans, that was something that was for the non-Jewish people. That was something that wasn't for the chosen people. Like, these are things that I was grown up being told. But I knew logically that it was okay to be doing what I was doing. And even though I felt the guilt, I knew that it didn't make sense, and it was emotional guilt. And so logically, I knew it was okay, and eventually the emotional guilt did go away. And so that's why I was able to logic myself into doing those things.
All right. And of course, we talked about, again, you coming out. We talked about you coming to Israel, meeting with all the founders, and,
Yes.
and you're also doing something with the queer scene in Israel.
No, I think it's so incredible. So I've lived in New York for a while, lived in California, and so both of those places are very queer friendly.
Yes.
You'd think like in San Francisco, there's so many bars to go to, things like that. But honestly, being in Israel, I've had the most warm connections with the queer community. I've made so many friends at like different bars and places, especially for queer women. In New York, there's not really that many queer spaces for women to go to. There's 2 bars. One's like full of like 50-plus-year-olds. The other one's like so crowded, it's hard to meet people. But in Tel Aviv, there's like one night that people just sit around and they talk to each other. There's one night where it's like a dance party. You know, it's like all these different kinds of vibes for queer women that exist in Tel Aviv that I've never experienced
Like
before.
different circumstances
Exactly.
within which to be in that space.
Exactly, and I think it's so beautiful that these spaces exist here.
Were you surprised at all by that? You know, because Israel has a pretty big name as a queer capital.
Yes, I knew that Israel was so pro like queer rights, gay rights, but I didn't know what it was like, particularly for queer women. And so
Sure.
like being a queer woman and coming to this space has been really amazing for me. And I think it's so beautiful, and I really hope that the world knows how supportive Tel Aviv is and Israel is of that.
All right, Miriam, it has been an absolute pleasure to sit here and speak with you. Thank you again so much for coming in, and I'm happy that you came to Israel again. And yeah, I can't wait for season 2 to come out. I know that it is coming.
It is coming, it is coming.
All right, so stay tuned, everybody. It is coming. Miriam, thank you again.
Thank you so much.